We're live.
All right, I'd like to call to order the Communications Committee meeting for May 17th, 2022. Let's see here. I think we're going to do things a little bit out of order. We're going to start with Lisa. If you can give us an update on the WPS podcast and all the great things that you do.
Thank you so much, David. Yes, there are a couple of updates that I would like to give, and then I have to actually jump off. I have a unexpected meeting. So the latest podcast is featuring. I laugh when I look at Dan DeVito on this because I love talking about the podcast. The Western Intermediate School, Lisa Moretti, who has been a music teacher in our district for, I think, almost 15 plus years. And her passion and enthusiasm for music clearly comes across. There will be 2 more editions of the podcast. I am working on 2 more surprises. I won't give them away, but we do have 2 more editions before we close for the year. And I appreciate everyone's encouragement and interest in listening to them. The other thing I wanted to mention was, and I believe I talked about it at this committee, and that's why I wanted to clarify. There was a publication that I've been working out to send out to the town, and it's kind of a state of the schools, what's up in the schools, overview about our schools with pictures, Board of Ed, and all of that. And I was going to send it out in mid-May. However, I have rethought that, and I'm thinking that it would be better to send it out the first month of September, kind of as a new, fresh look at the new school year. You know, this is a very busy time. We are mailing them home to all the families, regardless of if they have students in the school. And I kind of want to make sure that it's kicked off properly. And I think it will be better to send it off. The goal now is to send it out by the 3rd week in September, which I think will be lovely. It's 90% done. I just think that the timing is a little bit off right now. And I don't want it to kind of get lost in the spring event shuffle, if you will.
I think that's smart. The only thing is, keep in mind, back to school can be very busy as well. So let's make sure we're strategic about when we drop it back to school. But yeah, I think that's a smart
exactly. Move. Yes. I mean, I don't know if you have any preference. We probably could, since it's pretty much done, send it even the 1st or 2nd week earlier rather than later. I'm thinking.
I'm just trying to think of when most of the communication is going out with athletic teams and, you know, all that stuff where parents kind of just feel overwhelmed by a lot of the communication that's coming their way for the fall. Any thoughts on that, guys? Taffy, you? No?
Yeah. You mean when in the fall?
Yeah. When would be the most effective time for her to drop this?
I don't have an opinion on this. I mean, it's all busy.
Yeah.
I think maybe mid-September would be the best, because sports and all that, they have to have all their paperwork in early.
Yeah, you're right.
And as the back to schools are kind of winding down, I think it would be a nice publication to see. So my goal is to get it out by the 3rd week in September. I certainly will. I'm sure we'll have another meeting and I'll share it with you.
Okay.
Before, so you can see it. I think it looks really good. So
would it be helpful to have it out before the back to schools take place?
Some of them are the 1st week though, like kindergarten and that's kind of early. So we can figure it out, but I think definitely it has to go out in September.
Okay. And this is which? Sorry.
It's a publication that basically it's an overview of the schools. It will have an overview of the goals. It has a piece about, you know, this is the budget and this is how the budget is spent. It has your pictures in it, mine, the schools, things like that. Highlights.
Is it like that Norwalk paper that you showed us?
Exactly. Yes.
Yep.
And they actually send theirs out in the fall.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that I'd like to see it go out in September.
Great.
I think it should go out probably maybe 2-3 weeks after school starts, because people are so overwhelmed with getting their kids into the school, getting the school year started, coming back from summer vacation, all the other paperwork. And I'm thinking it's now that they're in school for a couple of weeks, some of what's going to be in that newsletter, they can relate to, rather than this is what it should look like. Oh, this is what it looks like. This is how it gets done. This is how things happen.
Yeah.
Good point. They can kind of connect what happened with their back to school with, you know, it's kind of a nice segue.
Right.
Lisa, before you, I know you've got to go, but two things. I just want to make sure that a couple of items that were on a standing agenda item from last year when Ruby was chairing these meetings, David, to your attention too. One is the list of accomplishments. What do we call that? It was like a one pager of all the kind of kudos of the high school. And is that continuing to be updated? I just want to make sure of that. And when does that usually come out for the year? Is that also in September, or should it be included in the report as the back page, or the front page?
Some of those highlights will be included. This past fall, I set up the reporting system for those events with Dr. Craw and June Coriano. Principals are continually reminded to put things in as they happen.
Okay.
June works on kind of fine tuning that, and it's been going along. Some of those will be drawn for the June 6th recognition meeting, but yes.
Yeah, I think it's critical also, Dan, that be front and center or available at key times during the year on the website. And I don't know where it lives right now. I should probably go and have a look, but it's really a very impressive one pager, David, that sort of shows, why you want your kid to go to Harvard, like all the accolades and kind of accomplishments of the school that you've chosen. And it's mostly for new people coming into Weston or thinking about buying in Weston. It's a big selling piece for increasing, our student body.
Yeah, we'll make sure there's a button, or like how it's a superintendent update or district. We'll make sure there's another one with that. And these publications we'll make sure that they go to all the realtors.
Yeah. And I mean, and just to find a point on it, David, but a lot of our discussions last year were not about how we communicate well or not well with the parent and public, to our fault. We didn't spend enough time on that, and you've brought that into focus, which is fantastic. I just don't want to drop the kind of marketing piece that is also in our committee, sort of how we market our schools and what pieces we produce, like the podcast and Lisa's newsletter and stuff.
There was a meeting last month. I don't know if you know, but I should tell you. It was a realtor meeting, and Kevin Smith, superintendent of Wilton, Tom Screese of Westport, and myself were the guests. It was a Zoom meeting.
No kidding.
And there were a whole bunch of realtors. One of them, my former student, Mr. Lochner, Ron Lochner, was there waving. But we all spoke to the schools, and that was another opportunity, I guess I could say, that we promoted them. So.
Yeah, and it's just nice to be able to send that digital accolades piece
to
all those realtors and say, if you want to hand this out. Now, realtors can't, I know we're sidebarring here, but realtors can't promote schools they can say, here's the data on all the schools in the region. They can't say, oh, the Weston has the best schools, so you should buy it.
No, but they can provide the links or the access information. And that's kind of the goal here. And that will be also with this brochure. I mean, the brochure is hard copy, but we'll also have an electronic version that we'll put on so people can see it. So
is this something that, Lisa, your office puts together and sends out?
Well, the brochure, yes. The accomplishments actually is generated out of Dr. Craw's office, but we'll make sure that it's out and available for everyone as well.
And branded the same way as your newsletter.
Exactly. I think I'm actually going to entitle it "What's Up in the Weston Public Schools," along the theme of the podcast.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
All right. I'm going to excuse myself. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks. You too. I have a little sidebar question, and this is slightly off topic, but the June 6th meeting. That's just a recognition ceremony only, correct? Because we have another one on the 20th that'll be board business, correct? Just trying to make.
That's correct, Sharon.
Okay.
That meeting is just for recognition.
Okay, I'm just trying to make sure I keep my schedule straight. Thank you.
And then as far as that goes, Taffy, the only person I think that usually attends is Tony, right?
No,
we all go.
we all go.
Oh,
Yeah, and we,
in September.
No, the recognition meeting is on June 6th. and we all go, and a whole lot of parents and students come because they're parading. Oh, you're not talking about, no, you're thinking about the graduation awards night, maybe?
Yeah, we're not
Something.
required to
There's
go to
some
that.
event- Okay, so but we all
So there's
go
the
to.
seniors awards evening or a day.
That's already happened, hasn't it?
No.
Okay.
No. And then the recognition is the board used to recognize at every board meeting, there would be recognitions and a few parents would come. And we decided that it's better to have it like twice a year with all the parents and the kids who need to be recognized, whether it's they got to the finals in Dallas of the, what was it?
It was robotics? No,
Robotics, right? They got to the final, so they're recognized, or academic recognitions or whatever. So it's like a board meeting. We all go.
How long does it typically last? Is it
less than an hour? Less than an hour.
My
And then,
sister's
by the
in
way,
town to
Sharon-
celebrate.
Yeah, Sharon, the meeting on the 20th is no longer on the 20th. It's now
Right.
on the 14th.
14th. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. Sorry, I threw that date out there accidentally.
No, no.
So yes. All right. It was just a bit of scheduling to make sure that I was where I needed to be as long as I needed to be there, and I didn't want to have to feel rushed or rush anyone. So, all right, perfect. David, back to you. You've got the
All right.
agenda.
All right, let's see.
We've
here.
been
So-
appropriating it, but yeah, it's yours.
We'll let you run the meeting. Go ahead.
It's all good. It's all good. As long as Dan's smiling, it's all good.
Exactly.
Let's see here. So I guess we will go back to item number 2, approval of the April 22 meeting minutes. So if nobody has any questions or changes, I get a motion to approve.
I motion to approve. I make the motion to approve the minutes.
Yep. Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Kathy.
Aye.
That's everybody. All right, moving right along. We already covered the WPS podcast. Facebook schedule postings of BOE meetings. So Dan, before you speak to that, I subscribed on Facebook to WPS. I got my notification yesterday on my Facebook page. The problem was the link to the streaming was broken.
Yeah, I have to talk to Jody about that. That's the wrong streaming link that she was using. So I just have to update her with the proper link. That's like an old dead link that hasn't existed for a while. So it was saying like, oops, like page cannot be found. And that's the one I grabbed off of the Google Calendar thinking that it was the proper one. It wasn't. But I did schedule those. So now Facebook has the Meta Business Suite, which has a built-in planner function. I'm going to preface that with the Meta Business Suite is free for any business that has a Facebook page. There is a paid version. We do not need it. I have no intention of ever going to it. But they have a planner which allows us to schedule posts. So I scheduled the posts for the Board of Ed regular meeting and for today's communications meeting to post about 24 hours before each meeting. The only thing that I have to figure out on how to do is because I schedule these posts, let's say a week in advance, the agenda may not be ready at that point in time. So I have to make a mental reminder to edit the scheduled posts with the link to the agenda whenever that's posted. And it seems to work because if I'm looking at the numbers, the Board of Education post reached 182 people. The Communications Committee reached 109 people. So I think that's a good way to remind people that we have, meetings, Board of Ed meetings coming up without being intrusive. It's part of their normal Facebook feed anyways. So it's getting pushed down to them. And I think it's going to be a good method of us to communicate with the public when we have upcoming board meetings.
Agreed.
So to get those notifications, what does the public need to do?
So when you go to Facebook, and if you haven't already liked our Facebook page, I'm going to get the exact wording for you, but when you go to Facebook and you go to the page Weston Public Schools, Weston, Connecticut, there's going to be a subscribe button that you click on. I'm not seeing it exactly here because I'm logged in as myself and I'm an admin of the page. But there's going to be a subscribe button so you get notifications that'll go directly into your feed, because Facebook tends to really enjoy changing the algorithm of Facebook feeds, where it's not as easy as it used to be, and you have to either mark it as a favorite or you click subscribe. That way it will make it onto your feed.
Okay. And what about, I think we were talking at the last meeting about coordinating through the PTO presidents. Like, how do we communicate sort of the steps, right? Because I could tell you, although I'm on Facebook, I'm not like a Facebook aficionado. So I had to figure out just going to the WPS Facebook page wasn't enough. I think I had to, like you said, I had to click on something to get those alerts. So is there a way, how do we communicate to people, like, here are the steps?
So I can speak to Lisa and Jody, and we can send those instructions over to the PTO presidents. We also did relay information to the PTO that if there are any, we now know in the future that if there are any changes to dates to board meetings, inform the PTO so they can then inform everybody else. I know that there was an issue last time we met over that, so that should help square that away. But giving information via the PTO, I think, is a good method for us to use.
Okay. And what about for the people who say, I'm not on Facebook? Do we have a solution for them yet? I mean, I know we're not going to be able to solve every person's we're not going to be on every person's preferred platform. But
well, it's difficult depending on the phone. But if you go on our PTS.org website, there's a button that says subscribe to calendar. When you subscribe to the calendar, it will show up in your feed. However, you have to make sure that those alerts are turned on for your calendar, and any changes that we make on the calendar will be updated within 15 minutes on the calendar that you've subscribed to. So there's a button for not only the district page, for each school's individual calendar that's on our website. You'll see a subscribe button. You just click that subscribe button. It's gonna open up. You can subscribe right to it, and make sure you turn the alerts on. Now that's phone specific, so I can't go over every single phone, but you just have to make sure that you are getting notifications for your calendar items.
Okay. So that is a question if people want to subscribe to the calendar, and that's anyone can do it, right?
Yeah, anybody, not just people with Android phones, because it is a back-end Google Calendar. Anybody with an iPhone or Android phone or a Windows phone can do that if they want.
Okay. But what about other social media platforms? So Facebook, we seem to have a solution for Facebook. You post onto Facebook and people can subscribe to the public schools Facebook page. What about some of the other ones? I guess I think I heard we use Twitter, and
we don't have an official Twitter account. Instagram, I mean, I can look at when we have like the monthly schedule, posting it as a picture onto Instagram. I don't want to go too crazy with making Instagram informational, because I feel that Instagram is the feel-good stories. But if we wanted to post something once a month with like, hey, here's the upcoming meeting schedule, that we can definitely do.
Yeah, I suppose the other option is we can just simply say there's two methods by which we disseminate the information.
Yeah.
And it's better to limit us to one or two that we can do well,
right,
than try and publish to 6 or 7 different sites and drop the ball on 3 or 4 of them, right? So
right. The last thing you're exactly right. One of the things that concerns me is, we say we have 5 different methods and we do 4 and forget to update the 5th, or there's a change and we update 3 out of the 5. Now we've got conflicting information out there. So we have to uniform, but with as many avenues as we can possibly take to inform the public.
okay. So it sounds like Facebook is sort of the official social media platform for the purposes of announcing meetings.
Yeah.
And the community can subscribe to the calendar on the website
Yep.
by going to the website from their phone, and then it adds the calendar to their device. Is that?
Yeah, it's going to add it as a separate calendar, and then you just have to make sure that that calendar's active. Like I know, for instance, on an iPhone, you can have multiple calendars, but then when you go in the calendar app, you can select which calendars are visible.
Right.
So some people may have that automatically disabled. So like I'm going to subscribe to the calendar, but it's not going to actually show up on the calendar app.
Right.
So you just have to make sure that you have that calendar checked on once you subscribe to it. And
Okay.
it will automatically receive any updates or changes. So it's not like a snapshot in time calendar. It's a constantly updating calendar.
Okay. So it sounds like we should be recommending to parents. Actually, it's open for anybody, right? Not just people who have. Okay. So if you're a parent, you might want to subscribe to the calendar that's specific to your school because it'll have the Board of Ed items in there plus school specific items, right?
I don't know if the school specific. I don't know if the school specific calendars have Board of Ed meetings on them.
Okay.
I'll have to get back to you on that. But I like what I would recommend starting, and then I'll eat crow if I'm wrong, is subscribe to the district calendar for Board of Ed meetings and other district wide information and meetings, and then subscribe to your children's school calendar for school specific events.
Okay. And if a meeting gets changed,
that's automatically updated on the calendar.
But there's no notification, right? I think we discussed that last time.
There is a way in the calendar to get notifications for meeting changes. That's specific to the phone.
Okay.
So I can see if I can write something up or do a FAQ page real quick for everybody for the next meeting on how to enable calendar modification notifications.
Okay. I think it would be helpful, and I think maybe I don't know what else comes out heading into September, but maybe we should kind of come up with a one-page FAQ, so to speak, of how to get best ways to interact or get calendar, so that heading into the new school year in the fall, we kind of get off to the right start with, hey, this Facebook is our official district platform for social media as far as notifications go. Here are the directions to do that. The calendar is the official place to go to look for events. Here's how you can, not like you said, Dan, not provide directions for every conceivable phone, but general, Apple's simple because iOS is the same for all Apple devices. But here's some quick steps. They might be slightly different based on the specific phone that you have. Maybe we can publish something, even if it's just on our website, where the PTOs can say, hey, the best way to get information from the Board of Ed is to go to these couple of places. And we prepare that over the summer, finalize it in August, and maybe have it sent out as part of, the new school year.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That's it for the Facebook update.
All right. So you want to keep going, Dan? You want to talk about live stream recording of BOE events?
Yeah, so the live stream worked without a hitch last night. Finally, we had 3 different backups just in case. But the way we like to do the meetings, David, this answers your question that you had said in the beginning of the meeting where things were muted. We start the stream 10 minutes early, muted, to make sure that the video and the stream itself is working. That gives us some time to troubleshoot in case there's an issue. And then once the chair hits the gavel, we unmute the stream. So the feedback you got was the stream is muted, and several seconds after that, the stream was unmuted. So everything worked without an issue. I had the calendar in the middle. The camera in the middle of our table. That was our backup camera that I recorded the meeting with, just to be safe. But the stream itself went well. The audio was very clear. Definitely an upgrade from previous years. The camera quality wasn't that bad. I must admit, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good for an analog system. The camera that I had in the middle, what the heck? I just forgot the name. Candow camera that was in the middle, which is supposed to record at 1080p, was not that good quality. It was the same type of quality as the cameras that are up on the ceiling. So I do not see that as a valid replacement for what we're doing. We would just be wasting money.
Okay.
Having that one camera is a good thing. So we're going to use that camera, like how I was able to bring it the annual instruction update. And that's now a portable way to record and stream meetings that are not in the BOE meeting space. So I'm going to continue with that camera, but it's not going to be the end all be all quality replacement for us.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought I went back last night since we were gifted with a relatively short meeting, knock on wood, but I did watch, I kind of fast forwarded 15, 20-minute segments. And yeah, I think there was no question the audio quality was really good. And the video quality, considering, like you said, they're analog cameras, it was pretty darn good. Do you have to have operators at the board toggling the cameras?
We do. So it was kind of funny because, we had the technician and there's 3 cameras, right? It's not picking the proper camera. It's then panning and zooming the camera into the person who's speaking and toggling fast enough to the correct person who's speaking next. So if you notice in the beginning of the meeting, the technicians were still getting used to the voices of each of the board members to make sure that they were zooming in on the right person. And then as the meeting went on, there was more of a recognition of, all right, this is David speaking, this is Taffy speaking, and quickly toggling to them. So we do need an operator, but it's nice because it also then allowed us to pan over and zoom in during the public comment portion to the principals when they spoke. So I think it's a pretty good process that we have now.
I think the process itself, I did not go home and watch the meeting. Thanks for doing that, David. I'll probably do that a little bit later on. But the process, it sounds as if it's actually pretty good, but I think it underlines again the importance of the hybrid meetings as well. Hybrid meeting, because if we're having to have 2 people sit there and, and do this, it's not like they're volunteering. There's a cost to having these in-person meetings. Yes. So I think that just again underlines the importance of, doing the hybrid.
And some analytics, we had a total of 87 unique viewers, a max of 17 peak concurrent viewers while we were live, and 25 views since the live stream ended. Because when the live stream ends, it then takes like 10 minutes, encodes it, and now it's an on-demand video. So 25 people have watched the on-demand video since that went live.
Can you tell how much of the on-demand video they watched? If they just turned it on and said, oh, turned it off, or if they watched half of it, all of it? Can you use those statistics available as well?
Yep. What you see is they skip along the meeting till they get to the part that they're looking for. Then they listen to that block of 10, 15 minutes, and then they sign off.
Fabulous.
It's more of like, I want to look for this topic. I want to listen to the annual instructional update topic, or I want to talk about the hybrid meeting. I want to listen to the hybrid meeting topic. So it gives them the ability to then skip along when they need to. Like the total watch time is 3.4 hours. So, out of the 25 people, that's a total of 3.4 hours of watching. So again, they're looking for the specific topics they're looking for, which is a really nice, convenient feature for the public to not have to sit through. Again, we were gifted yesterday, but this gives them the ability to fast forward when we happen to have, a marathon meeting that maybe, closing in on 4 hours. When we have it virtually, it gives them the ability to passively watch it, and they don't have to sit in the media center for 4 hours.
Right.
to get 3.5 hours into the meeting to get into the meat and potatoes of what they wanted to hear about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to that,
Go ahead.
I was like, to that end, it was in the packet last night, which I'm sure, Sharon, you're going to read for a fifth time, right? You read it before the meeting, during the meeting, right? But no, seriously, in the packet, there was a PDF about the really the topic that you kind of brought to my attention, Sharon, which was that having the meetings be remote was not a given because that temporary law was going to sunset. Lamont did sign, or whomever signs these types of things, it is now permanent. And in this PDF that CABE provided me, it's written by an attorney. It's a summary of what's required for public meetings that are in person, hybrid meetings, or entirely remote. And it's worth noting that we have no obligation to stream our meetings. It is 100%. If we are in public, right? Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was my read on it, is that the concept of streaming the meeting and recording it as two separate things when we have a meeting in person is 100% at the discretion or the convenience of the town. There's no obligation to do that. So I found that interesting because I took for granted that if we're meeting in public, we have to stream it. We don't, because the public has the option
of attending
the meeting. So the interesting piece is that when you look at 100% in person, there is no obligation to record it. There's no obligation to stream it. There's no obligation to record it. There's no obligation to publish it. When you go to hybrid, and in our scenario, we're using the term hybrid a little bit different than the state. So the concept of the state using hybrid is we're in person and we're remote. So for example, you and Taffy might not come to the meeting, but Tony and Melissa, Peter, Bernie, and I do. So that's what they're using the term hybrid. In that scenario, we do have to make it available to the public in real time, record it in the whole 9 yards. And if we're 100% remote, we have an obligation to make it available in real time as well. And there's even some nuances, like if the technology breaks down. So for example, when we had the meeting a couple of months ago and the technology wasn't working at all, and we were waiting, we had no obligation to do that.
Right.
So my only point is that when we look at the benefits of so we're using the term hybrid to say we're going to have 2 remote meetings a quarter, 1 in-person meeting a quarter. And we look at the cost for the technology, it becomes even more compelling that the in-person meetings will have the technology that we have. This is what we have for live streaming. We're not obligated to provide Olympic quality editing. It's not our budget.
and it's not necessary. I mean, these are not they don't really need to see whether or not I have on mascara. It's just they just need to see that I'm talking.
Those pants, Sharon.
Yeah. Well, if you're Zoom.
Right. Yeah. So I think for the purposes of the data that you just had, Dan, I think it would be helpful if you can keep that available so that when we meet in June, I think at this point, the way it was sort of left off was we would wait and see if we hear from anybody. I don't know that we will, but if someone's listening now and they have strong feelings about what type of meetings we should have in the future, I think they should email the member or the board in general.
I've heard from a couple of people already. They want hybrid. They're like, seriously, we want to attend the meetings, but we have kids and we're driving and schedules, and it's really difficult for us. And so then we have to schedule an additional time to sit down and watch it. It would be much easier if we could just do it on Zoom and we can have a headphone in and be busy and listen, at the same time.
Yeah, I've listened to plenty of town meetings driving my son back and forth to baseball.
Sure.
Right? So I'm not participating at that point, but I'm listening, and that's a great thing. So I think for June, and just for now from here, I think knowing that we don't have a legal obligation to live stream the in-person meetings, and looking at the priorities that the district has when it comes to spending money, and especially Dan's department, I think spending $45,000 or $65,000 to improve the streaming of our meetings in the library is a not an area, right? It's not where we want to be putting our money. We don't want to take $60,000 away from directly educating our kids for something that is a nice to have, not a need to have.
And
Especially-
I think you made that point at the meeting last night too, you know, when you were like, we'd rather educate our children, and there was just a lot of nodding going on.
I think, and especially if we do as a board decide to go into the hybrid that we're talking about, that would only be for 1/3 of the meetings as well. And I think that, you know, keep in mind, again, for the other 2/3, if we're going to be utilizing Zoom, it makes the live streaming even that much better for, you know, screen sharing and all that, which that, you know, the, excuse me, the investment to make that the same as Zoom would be just crazy. So yeah, I think we're good. But I think also, David, when we talk about it in June, I think it, for those people who didn't read it for the 5th time, it would be a good idea. And also just for, you know, if anybody didn't download your document from the public, just to let them know, you know, we, by no means are we obligated to stream these meetings. Clearly, that's not even a thought to us, because we are all about being as transparent as we possibly can be. You know, we're enough accused of not being transparent. Like, no, really, we're trying our best. We don't even have an obligation to do this, but we are doing this. So I think making that point would probably behoove us. And
And Dan, if we do wind up moving to what the state considers hybrid, right? So we're using the word hybrid kind of differently, right? Our term for hybrid is 2 meetings remote, 1 meeting in person.
Yep.
What the state considers hybrid is where people who, my understanding is, if you have a board member, right, somebody who has to attend the meeting and that person's attendance is required for a quorum,
Yep.
We have an obligation at that point to 2 things: have the public involved, which we would do regardless, but we have to, I believe, from a technical perspective, make sure that if, for example, Sharon is attending remotely, she has the same access that Taffy or I or another board member would have in person.
Yep.
So to that end, do we have a solution yet for if Ken is going to do a presentation and Sharon is remote?
Yeah.
Do we have a better solution there yet, or is Sharon going to be using a camera pointed at the screen?
That's what I was going to bring up also, is I wanted everybody to keep in mind that if no, regardless, we are going to have a discussion about a solution to getting the projector as direct input to the TriCaster for the meetings, because right now putting a camera on the projector is not a good solution. So we would run, let's say Sharon was attending the meeting virtually, we would actually run Zoom for Sharon in the TriCaster in the back of the room. And we still need to pay for wiring from the front area all the way to the back area for the projector. There is going to be a cost for that, and the cost is going to be a couple of $1,000s. I think it was like $3,000 just to do the projector, because it's a far run. I'm going to try to see if we can decrease that cost a little bit, but when you have a run that far, you can't use inexpensive cables, because then you degrade the signal quality. So there's still going to need to be a cost if we want, you know, for our in-person meetings. If an in-person meeting has a presentation, I still think we need to get that projector as an actual input device for the public to see the actual computer screen like you do in Zoom, instead of a camera on a computer screen. I didn't know what everyone's thoughts were on that.
Yeah, I think that we should do that as well. What kind of connector is it to go from so you've got to go from the projector out into the TriCaster, right?
Yep. So what happens is in the wall next to the closet where the laptop is, there's an HDMI input. And right now that goes up the wall over the ceiling to the projector. Inside the wall, we would split that connection, and we would run actually Cat5 cable from there all the way into the TriCaster, and then we would put HDMI ports on the end, because HDMI, you can only really go a maximum of like 30 feet before you really start seeing signal degradation. So we use Category 5 or Category 6 cable, which is networking cable, but doesn't degrade for up to 100 meters. So we get a good 300-foot run, and we would convert it back to HDMI to the TriCaster. So,
Go ahead.
no, that's basically it.
Would it be helpful, before Sharon jumps in, would it be helpful, can we do a test run? So my company's familiar with those HDMI over Cat6 balance. I'd be happy to bring a set in. If we can run we being you and your team,
Yep.
if you can run a Cat6 wire just on the floor temporarily for a meeting, I'd be happy to bring that device in, and we can test it just like you did that CanDo camera. So we have them in my office. So I know that if we commit $3,000 or $4,000 and you hire a contractor, it'll get done and it'll work, right? But before we commit that kind of money to find out the results aren't what we want, would it be worth a test run? Or
it's something we can do. I mean, I've done these types of runs in the past in my previous districts without issue. Just the technology has gotten pretty good over time for HDMI. Like I've done it in auditoriums when there's a laptop in the front of the auditorium, on throw projector all the way in the back of the auditorium, and I've used these runs for that, and the quality's been perfect. So if it's something we want to run, I have no problem doing it. But at the same time, I am confident that if that's something we choose to move forward with, the quality is going to be good.
Okay.
what do you think, Sharon?
My one question is then, if we're going to end up doing that, I'm just thinking about the user experience, right? So if we're doing that, and this is again the hybrid model, so some in-person meetings and some in-person participants, and then me, of course, on Zoom. The person on Zoom is only going to be when there's a presentation and they take it back to the computer so we can see what's being generated by the projector. That's all that would be seen. You can't see who's speaking. You just have to know voices, correct?
During the presentations portion, yes.
Okay. All right.
But for the rest of the meeting, the board member who's attending the meeting virtually would see the overhead cameras.
Okay.
And to that end, Sharon, to Sharon's point, Dan, if we brought essentially what we're talking about doing is bringing another input into a TriCaster, right? And the input would be the projector. So is there another input available that if you have technicians in the back, and we are in the hybrid mode of a board member being remote and the rest of us being in person, if the board member is able to participate or see that screen remotely, can we also, if the public chose to do, if we wanted to make public comment available, if we're going to afford a board member the ability to participate remotely, I think we have to also afford the ability of a community member to participate remotely. I think if we don't, it just, it's not equitable. So if you're thinking this through, is there a way with the webinar type of feature we talked about doing to also bring in that member of the public to address the board through Zoom?
I'd have to think about that because that takes a little bit more management, and I don't know if I'd be comfortable with putting that kind of responsibility onto the technicians to run. So I would have to see if there's a way that I could run the show from my laptop at the table with all of us. So
Can I interject here?
Yeah, it's easier if it's just a board member because I can get them started 5 minutes before the meeting starts and walk away. But when it's a public member, you have to, who's calling their name, who's promoting them, who's then demoting them when they're done with their speaking. That's a conversation that it's a larger conversation that I want my technicians to, I'm going to be honest, to be comfortable with doing, because that's a pretty big responsibility for them to manage the meeting on that level.
And who will do it during the other 2 meetings a month? If we do move to this, Weston hybrid model, we will need somebody doing that.
And that's me. And so I have no problem doing that. That's what I did when we started doing live public comment in Zoom meetings. I was the one running it myself and Jody, and I have no problem doing that.
Can I say something? Sometimes I think, David, I think you are absolutely, your heart is in the right place, and I think you're moving in the right direction on many of these things. But I think we might be overreaching on this a little bit. Personally, I think in the past when we had in-person meetings, if someone missed a meeting, they missed a meeting. It's a schedule conflict, right? When we went into Zoom, I missed 2 meetings in Zoom, and the reason I missed 2 meetings in Zoom is because I had anticipated having Zoom meetings and I made travel plans accordingly. Now that we'll have a schedule ahead of, we know when we're required in person and we know when we are going to be in virtual, right? I think if somebody is not able to attend a public meeting, one of the board members is not able to attend the public meeting, they just miss a meeting. I think that it's a scheduling issue. And I think that, I guess, KISS, keep it simple, right? I don't want to overcomplicate this situation for a board member that may not be able to be there, because chances are if the board member isn't able to be there, there's a very good reason, and they're probably not going to be able to be there live either. So,
Good point.
because if we're opening up this can of worms for the board member, like you said, to keep it equitable, do we need to make it available to the public as well? And I think this is just getting really complicated. So I think maybe if we just stick with, hey, if you're going to miss an in-person meeting, you're going to miss an in-person meeting. We hate to do it, but you're an elected official and it's responsible, and
it's rare, and it's rare, and it happens, and it's not the end of the world because we're a team, right?
And we can, and you, like, I wasn't able to attend those 2. I tried to watch them live. One I wasn't able to. One I was able to watch part of it, and I just went back and watched them recorded. So I didn't really miss out on any of the information. But I think that
it's our civic duty to be there.
Sure.
So if we can't, we can't. I agree that I also am going to just, I'm going to accuse both of you boys of being incredible nerds. And I'm just going to say that, that I think, and I love you for it. But that, the which adapter and which HDMI cable goes where, I would beg you both to take this offline, and because David, I think you bring a ton of knowledge to this and can really support Dan. I don't think we all need to be part of this.
So you don't want to join Dan and I for Geek Out Lunch? You sure?
No.
We'll
I want to be a board member, and I want to make higher level decisions. But you guys go and nerd out all you want, and not on this committee meeting.
All right.
The best thing, Kathy, is that I'm going to watch the meeting of this recording and pinpoint the exact moment you lost interest when we started talking about the
like doing my nails, you mean? Like, yeah.
If you could also do some data analysis on her nonverbal communication, her eyes start drifting,
Sharon
left eyebrow goes
Sharon
up.
too.
Sharon did send the thing saying, I think they're geeking out on us. I said, I'm going to be completely honest.
Like, I would rather have my liver removed than sit through this meeting again. I'm just telling you right now.
So you're not going to watch the recording?
Man,
Okay, so that's
sorry.
Like, we are board members. We will make high-level decisions. Carry on, nerds.
Right.
Do your thing.
So that said, it sounds like we're going to ask Dan to proceed with probably getting a quote and just doing the projector, because it sounds like we are in agreement. We know what the results are going to be. We know the results of being able to take a projector image and make it available to the community is something we want to do. So I don't know how, Dan, you go about getting it approved, but it sounds like the $2,000 or $3,000 is what's needed to get the projector to be able to be all right. And the part about a board member remotely accessing the meeting, table it for now. It doesn't sound like it's something that we need to do, and we'll revisit after a few meetings.
If it becomes an issue or we're not able to hit a quorum, which I highly doubt, we can revisit it.
There's also a disincentive to come to meetings personally if you can dial into them. And what we want is, if we're having in-person meetings, we want us to show up. At our church, for example, during COVID, it was wonderful that we could have services remotely, because we just did it live, and now people aren't coming back to church because it was pretty nice to be able to do it from home, right? So I do think we want to incentivize our board members to actually be at meetings. I don't think you want to give them an out like, oh, I kind of had that thing, so I'm just going to dial in. Like, I don't think we should be able to do that.
Yeah. And I think, like Sharon sort of said, it's once, ultimately, if things go as we anticipate they're going to go, it's a once a quarter commitment.
Right.
that we know way ahead of time. We're not going to be arbitrarily
Right.
picking which month the meeting is going to be in person. It's going to be
Exactly.
set in stone. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we have a plan for that. What else, Dan, as far as the live streaming piece?
That's it.
Okay.
No more nerding out, I promise.
Yeah. No more adapter talk. Okay. It's a rule. Like the fact that I even have one of these at my desk right now is a
Yes.
miracle.
Look
Okay.
at that.
So many thoughts, but I'll keep them to myself. I think then, let's see. I think, unless anybody has anything else,
Well, I'd like to talk about HDMI cables. Just
I'd like to talk about composting.
How do you know when a carrot is ready?
Yeah, exactly. Do not pull it out of the ground to test. Dan, you're a star for putting up with us. David, you've added a whole new level of interest to these meetings. And Sharon, as always, a joy. June, thank you for putting it together for us.
Thank you. All right. So do we have go ahead, David, you.
I think at this point, then we have a motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor?
There we go.
All
Thanks,
right, everyone.
guys. Have a great
Awesome.
week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.